Hello there. This is a bit of a different video than I normally make, so I am aware I'm probably not going to do this as well as I could. But this is something I kind of want to talk about because I see it like a lot in this community now and feel like it's important to try and kind of fix the mindset that I see going around because I'm passionate about seeing people get better at this game. And I think the mindset a lot of people have doesn't work. But firstly, I want to go over that mindset. A lot of what we see in modern top players, or just people who try and get good at the game, essentially, more so just the latter, what ends up happening is we see someone go for a level as a hardest, normally, and then they wait like 5 or 6 months, having done almost nothing of a similar difficulty, and then they go for another new hardest, and as expected, it takes them a significantly longer because they didn't improve at the game. Let's take technical for example. Like, he beat Slaughterhouse how long ago? In like May of 2024, I want to say. And in between the time between then and now, when he started playing Acheron, he's only beaten one level even remotely close to his hardest before Slaughterhouse, that being Edge of Destiny. That's just not improving at the game. He's not done enough to actually warrant improving at the game, and it makes me feel like his experience with Acheron could be avoided if he had just prepped better. And this is something a lot of people do, and I really don't like it. Because whether or not it shows a lack of motivation to actually try and get better at the game, boredom, just wanting to play the hard level that they're playing, it makes no sense. It doesn't get people better at the game. At least in my eyes, a hardest can't necessarily make you better at the game, but it does break the mental barrier of like, oh, so I can go things for around this league. If I beat this, I can do everything up here now. For example, I am naturally way less scared of something like Tartarus now that I've beaten something that's considered harder than it. If I was going for Tartarus as a hardest, I would naturally be very scared of it. Even as little as like just over a month ago, like even as I was starting playing Sinister Silence, I was still insanely terrified of Tartarus, but simply beating something harder than it, I'm way less scared of it now. And I think that's a good thing, because that means I'm incentivized to play it. And if I play it along with a bunch of other levels in between Esfera Sinister Silence, I will naturally get a lot better at the game. That is the way I've always tried to progress. And people look up at me as if I'm like insanely good at the game and just flying through levels, which admittedly I am flying through a few levels, but my progression very much seems linear. It seems like very progressive and standard. It feels like a progression that everyone can replicate, but no one chooses to, and hence no one gets this good at the game. For example, if we take my time between Esfera and Sinister Silence, with Bloodlust being my hardest before Esfera, right? I beat Esfera on the 30th of April of 2025, and I beat Sinister Silence just over a month ago as of recording this, 16th of January of 2026. That is nearly a 9-month gap. And how much did I beat in that time? I beat things like Ragnarok, The Rupture, Rust, Seri Never Clear, Atomic Cannon Mark II, Hard Machine, Cold Sweat, Renevant, Escape Room, like No Jokes, Frost Spirit, like all of these levels, and that's a lot of levels. I single-handedly pushed Bloodlust from being my second hardest to like my 20th hardest. And that was good because it helped me build a foundation that made me more confident in my skills when it came to going for levels above Esfera, which is naturally what's happened now. I was really confident when going for Sinister Silence, and I beat it in less than a week, despite it being a mainless demon still. And given where it's gotten me so far, this mentality is really good, evidently. And I feel like it should become the norm for a lot of players going forward. And I think it's the fact that no one uses it is the reason why no one's gotten as good at the game. Because nowadays you just see people jumping to some crazy level from like Deadlocked or some shit, and then no surprise, they're never going to actually get good at the game because they're not training themselves on actual skill. Or like you see someone with Koareda as their hardest go for cognition, even though they've beaten literally nothing in between Koareda and their previous hardest, let's say Erebus, and they've had like a whole year to do something around there. It's just a dumb mentality in my eyes. I just can't look past how ineffective that is. The only reason I've been able to spend so little attempts and so little time on my hardest and levels in general is because I took this progression route. Now, admittedly, is this progression route for everyone? Maybe not. But I'm not saying you have to beat like 20 levels in between your current and previous hardest before going for a new one and feeling confident in it. No. As long as you beat like 5, like in my position, let's say if I only beat Tartarus, Verdant Landscape, the Golden Oblivion Delta. That's enough to set me through for another hardest. Am I going to do more than that? Probably. Because there's a lot of levels around that area on the list that I do really like and do want to play. But not doing anything regardless of whether or not you like the level, that's not a good mentality. I don't think that people should be encouraging this behavior of, oh, if you don't like the level, well then just don't play it. No, if you're actively seeking to get better at the game and that's your main intention, you cannot exclude any levels just because you wouldn't like them. Because then you limit your own options, you limit what you can improve at, and naturally your skill does not increase in tandem to other people's. One last thing I would like to make clear though is that when you go for a hardest, you can go for one decently above your current, of course depending on what the level is firstly. But if you take this advice, it's going to be way more doable. For example, in my position, people have done Firework as a hardest from around this area that I'm at. If I was to go for Firework, it would be doable, but I would want to and probably have it be extremely necessary that I beat so many things in between Asperia and Sinister Silence to really get good at that area of difficulty, and then Firework is like the step beyond. If I beat one thing in between the two and call it a day, I'm naturally going to struggle immensely with Firework. Like in a similar vein, if your hardest is something like Solar Flare and you want to go for Kyoki as your next hardest, that it's doable. Like as much of a gap as it might look in difficulty, it's definitely doable, but you need to prepare. And people don't do that and then they wonder why they suck at it. Improving at this game takes a lot of patience sometimes, and it takes prepping yourself for the challenge that you want to go through. And it bugs me to no end when people just don't take that challenge seriously. Because then they start wondering, why am I doing so poorly? As if they don't know that they've done something wrong. And they clearly have, because they didn't prepare well enough for the level that they're doing. And it's part of the reason why we don't see like other super top players nowadays, because no one has the motivation to do this for some reason. That being said, I'm not going to try and become a top player, even though I have this practice method kind of mastered. But people constantly say that the game is getting too hard, and I disagree. It's just the players are not as motivated and are making more stupid decisions. So yeah, there's my 2 cents about the mentality of players nowadays. Hopefully this encourages you to take a bit more of my advice and strive for best in your previous achievements, because like I said, I'm passionate about seeing people get better at this game, and I don't think they're doing it the right way. So if you learn something from this and you can use it to get much better at the game, then thank you. I wish you the best, and I hope that you can do some things in this game that you really want to do. I might make more of these because there's a lot I want to yap about with this game and things about it that I'd kind of like to outline that I don't see a lot of other people talk about. But for now, I'm just going to head out.